Hey guys, I wanted to share with you some of the videos and pictures from some of my previous travels on some of the cool ecosystems I have gotten to see firsthand. And I want you to look through and see what you can discover by looking at these. And then we'll have a few other examples from just around my backyard when we talk about adaptations later in the video. All right, today we're looking at biodiversity. And biodiversity is the amount of biological variation, okay? And it can be described in two different ways. You can have genetic biodiversity, or you can have ecological biodiversity. Genetic biodiversity has to do with the variation of genes within a species. Okay, so you have a healthy population of a certain species, you're going to have great genetic variation. And ecological biodiversity deals with the entire ecosystems, communities, and habitats. So a lot of different species existing together in a healthy ecosystem. High biodiversity allows species to adapt and ecosystems to adjust to disturbances. Okay, so some of the ecosystems that we know with the highest biodiversity would be like healthy rainforests or healthy coral reefs. Okay, they have a lot of different organisms, and those organisms are able to work together for the overall health of the ecosystem. Now, when we talk about disturbances can be short-term or long-term, okay? They can also be man-made or natural. So when we categorize these as short and long-term, think about which ones would also be man-made or natural. So for short term, some examples would be like a flood, like a flash flood coming through, or like a forest fire, and even a drought. Okay. Long term occur over several generations within the ecosystem. So you have like climate change, deforestation, pollution, overfishing. Okay, you'll notice that all of those from our long-term list there are man-made. Now, species are able to adapt through the process of natural selection. So the more biodiverse a species or even an ecosystem is, the more capability they have to adapt. And natural selection is when individuals that are better suited are able to survive and reproduce. Because the end goal of any organism is to create offspring and pass their genes on to their offspring. Now, Darwin is the one who came up with this idea of natural selection. And when we talk about the ability to adapt, there are three different types of adaptations. Now, I'm going to share with you some pictures of just things around my house and my backyard of each of these. So structural adaptations would be like physical features. Behavioral would be like an adapted behavior. And physiological is an actual like functional adaptation within the body. So let's look at structural. So a physical feature like camouflage. Can you find the snake in this picture? It's an example of very good camouflage. Now, behavioral is an adapted behavior. So it can be learned or innate, but it has to do with how the organism behaves, whether in a group or individually. So, fish schooling or birds in a flock migrating are examples of behavioral adaptations. Whereas physiological adaptations is a functional adaptation within the organism. For example, venom in a snake, in a poisonous snake, or a spider, or even a poisonous oil from our common poison ivy. What about some of these? Thorns on a thistle. What do you think that would be? Or the coloration of this Luna moth. Or even the eye spots on this moth I found at Waterloo. And check out this interesting behavior of ants today on my walk. Notice that they are clumping up in order to float on the water from the recent rain. All of these are examples of adaptations.